you can see it's obvious that what we're talking about at Roswell, and I don't mean Roswell in 47 because that was Project Mogul. That was unmanned. I want to make that very clear. And that's the first report. But over that period of time, dummies were dropped all around there. And I think it's logical to assume that the people there saw Air Force ambulances come out, they saw gurneys come out, they saw body bags come out because the dummies were put into body bags to protect them.
Countries in Europe are taking this very serious. They're not like us here. They're not going to put out stories that there were dummies came out of the air. Those people are a little more serious about this than we are. Why they do this latest thing? I can't understand that. I can't even comprehend why they do that.
Who directed that?
It had to be the higher-ups in the Air Force. It had to be. And Department of Defense. They call the shots. They say what to release. So I blame their superiors. It wasn't the ordinary Air Force officer that did that. I know a lot of them. I have good friends there. Fought with them in Korea. These boys would never do anything like that. They had more sense. Somebody up on top made the decision. Why? I can't even comprehend that. I always say if I had done anything like that, General Trudeau would have thrown me out of the top window of the Pentagon. You don't, why they do it? They don't have to do it. It's not necessary. Tell these kids what they want to hear. That's easier and better for them. Nobody calls them silly.
You're confident that you're not part of any cover-up, wittingly or unwittingly?
I'm totally confident. But I think Colonel Weaver, you might have seen him on TV earlier, said it best. We can't even keep single secrets. How could we have a conspiracy or a cover-up?
Well, it hasn't maintained it. It's been leaking out all over the place. But the way it's been handled is by denial, by denying the truth of the documents that have leaked, by attempting to show them as fraudulent, as bogus of some sort. There has been a very large disinformation and misinformation effort around this whole area, and one must wonder how better to hide something put out in the open than just to say it isn't there. You're deceiving yourself if you think this is true, and yet there it is right in front of you. So it's a disinformation effort that is the most concerning here, not the fact that they've kept a secret. They haven't kept it. It's been getting out into the public for 50 years or more.
When I came back, General Trudeau pulled me in. He had reorganized research and development from a secondary mission logistics to a very compact, good unit, about 3,000 officers. It wasn't too compact. And then I went. First, when I reported in, I was a special assistant. Then he created the Foreign Technology Division about a week later and put me in charge of it. There I started getting autopsy reports. I started getting other crash reports, the artifacts I got. When I came to research and development, which was 14 years later, by the way, I inherited all these artifacts, and I inherited the reports, autopsy reports from Walter Reed Hospital. Now, Walter Reed, there was a laboratory there, which was our laboratory, and we financed. That's who did the autopsies for us. So there I started getting indication, proof that a crash really happened here. Of course, then I kept it quiet for 35 years. I had an oath with the general. No, the general told me, he said, Phil, let's keep it secret. When I die, though, I relieve you of my oath. 3 years ago, the general died. And I start putting all this on paper. My grandchildren, he said, what'd you do during the war? I said, I better leave them a legacy. I say, I had the evidence that a crash did happen here. And where did it happen? The site that I went to the other day was CNN. And in my day, Stalin gave orders to get to this information that came out of Roswell to some of his top scientists and agents. That order went out. And we knew that in the special intelligence that I was in the Pentagon, which was very closely held. KGB trying to penetrate that, but they never did. They send agents out all over this area here to try to get information on Roswell.
Were you and your group ever able to determine where these things are from, why they're here?
No, we were never able to determine. Yeah, we had the greatest artifact that they gave us was those bodies, and we didn't do enough on those. That partially, I can take the blame. I had the money, I had the organization, I had the people to do it, and we didn't go far enough.
Autopsies were done on bodies, though,
but
right?
not enough. We didn't do enough. How they functioned, how their brain functioned, and we came to the conclusion even in those days that these were the reason most flying saucers have failed is because our conclusion was that this being is part of the guidance system. He's part of that saucer.
We didn't figure it out.
We never figured it out. We didn't do enough on that body. We didn't even do 10% of what we should have done.
You saw the reports.
I had the reports. See, the Walter Reed, the laboratory Walter Reed, was our laboratory. We financed it. That was ours. And that's what did that I had in my files. But it didn't go near far enough. The skin, marvelous instrument. Look at our skin. This is one of the wonders of creation, our skin.
I've testified in front of 6 congressional committees. If they want me to, providing it's serious, and they're not going to put it in the archives and just put it away, that something is done with it, not just Congress sitting up there for publicity purpose. I'll go any time they want to.
That when you first got here, his themes only to question you about minutia.
I was getting reports that in Korea they had some sort of a hospital up there where General Kim Il, the Soviet, who was heading all the interrogation on brainwashing, they had a hospital there that were actually experimenting on our prisoners Nazi style. And I put that in my statement. Of course,
Nazi style. Go ahead.
There's no hitch on me. And I'll tell them anything they want, providing they're serious. I won't go up there to help a senator or congressman get elected. Look, there's a lot of stupidity involved, let's face it.
I was going to ask you one last thing. If you only had a moment to speak in open congressional hearings to discuss what happened 50 years ago, what would you say?
I say it happened, and I'd add on to that. Give us information to the young people of the world in this country. They want to hear it. They want it. Give it to them. Don't hide it and tell lies and make stories. They're not stupid. They're not young men that'll panic. In fact, my own nephew was the research director of DACO Corporation. He tells me, he says, Uncle Phil, once they tell us the truth, we're not going to panic and pull our hair out. And one good example of this, which I always tell, to prove this point, that the young people will want it and they're not going to panic, they want to hear this. And that's one of the reasons I wrote this. Even my own grandchildren now will see it. And I always prove it this way. I commanded a battalion of 1,500 men, combat battalion. Average age of my soldiers was 19 and a half years old. I told my exec one day, my God, Maine, we're sending babies into battle. And these kids, they fought the greatest armies in the world. They didn't run, they didn't panic. They stood there and fought. And why do you think they'll panic? They wanted this information. They deserve it. It's their information. It doesn't belong to the Army or the Department of Defense. It's theirs. If it's classified, take the classification off and give it to them.
Who's covering it up now? I mean, is there any one organization?
Look, I always say this. Now, here's what I say. The government is so big and so vast that if you leave it alone, it'll cover itself up. When I testified in front of missing prisoners of war in front of Congress, the Senate, and later, not too long ago, in front of the House. And they asked me a question like this, and I told them, look, you know, it amazes me when a Scowcroft, a General Scowcroft, and a Kissinger can come up here in front of you, gentlemen, and say there's no information there. I sent it myself from Tokyo over teleconference over a 2-year period. How can I say that? And all the families were sitting there, and they wanted to hear this, see. Later on, we searched for it, we found it. It had fallen through the cracks. The politicians didn't care. They want their own little bailiwick, their own little ego, and do their own little job and get in the newspapers. If a prisoner of war missing from families, they don't care. And I brought this out when I testified. And the cover-up happens like that sometimes with nobody doing anything. It'll cover itself up and fall through the cracks, as I put it.